It's gonna be a good one.
It's gonna be a good one.
Definitely a different type of process.
Cut down or freeze up.
Being a coach's son. Jackson, of course, they keep you one still is a hit by pitch. Oh my. Hello everyone, welcome inside the Red Earth Production Studios for this edition of YBMcast Baseball Talk. Got some good stuff for you and always powered by our good friends at Game 7 Baseball. Game7baseball.com. The season will be upon us probably sooner than we can think about it, and that's usually the case. So right now, great discounts. We also got some stuff happening with our YBM Super 7 series. We've got 7 tournaments that we're going to be at. We're going to be pushing some more of that information out. We'll have some more of that as we head towards January. We'll have information about where we're going to be, what we're going to be doing. Make sure you check out Game 7 Baseball, game7baseball.com. One of the best tournament providers in the Midwest. We appreciate it. Hey, also, folks, we appreciate you being here supporting Youth Baseball Midwest. If you like what we do, please subscribe, support, like, share this out with your friends. The subscribe and the like really helps with the algorithm, gets it out to other folks. We appreciate that very much. If you want to follow us on social media, you can. On IG and Facebook is at Youth Baseball Midwest. With X, we are at YBM_cast. Make sure you check us out. So today, though, on the show, we appreciate, as always, on the Prime Sports call link all the way from Kansas City, head coach from Staley, Dionandre Josenberger. Coach, how you doing?
Doing pretty good, Brian. Finally warmed up a little bit here in Kansas City.
How bad was it over there for you guys? Did you get into the 20s?
Sunday morning, it felt like 8 degrees when I was getting up to go to the school for morning workouts. Yeah, but feels pretty good today. I think it's supposed to get back in the 50s.
I'm okay with that. I'm not a cold weather person. I never want to live any further north than I currently do. I just think that's the worst thing ever. I'm a warm weather type person, so I'm with you, Coach. That's why baseball, right? Warm weather.
Yeah, 100%.
That's why you gotta play in domes in the north, like Chicago. Will they ever dome Wrigley? Probably not. But man, but they don't play a lot in November, so I guess it really doesn't matter.
Yeah, but it's cold in March.
Yeah.
April. Yeah.
In Kansas City too, right? You guys are a little further up north. You seem to get a lot more bad weather than we do.
Oh yeah, it gets cold in March and April. So I'm not a cold weather guy either. Actually, it's okay with just the wind is what. When it's windy, man, I'm miserable.
Do you guys, boy, you ain't kidding. You guys ever consider, like, in your schedule, and now that you're, the head coach there at Staley, do you ever consider about just playing a lot of games like down south in the early part of the season, just travel and forget it?
That'd be nice. Our team actually used to go to Arizona over spring break for years and years. I think they took some trips, but I think we go to Arkansas, so it's usually a little bit warmer there at that time of year, about 10 degrees, it seems like, and that makes a big difference.
Yeah, it does. Your hands won't break when you try and catch a baseball.
Yeah, I'd much rather be 95 than 45.
Oh, and it reminds me, this one year, my son, early on in the season, they were supposed to be playing a game up at he was at Hannibal LaGrange, and snow. They came down. They were in Illinois over at, I think it was O'Fallon, park over there. It was in O'Fallon, Illinois, playing Lindenwood Belleville, and we're shoveling snow off the turf, man. Just get the game.
Yeah, that's
Because
ridiculous. Well,
it wasn't
if you're on Staley's schedule and it's that cold, you might as well stay home.
ain't gonna happen, huh?
No, it's not gonna happen. That's no good for anybody.
Oh, mercy. Well, folks, today on the show, we want to talk. I want to take a little bit here because we've been talking about teams and stuff and this and that, but uh, Coach Josenberger, you've also been part of the youth club scene for many years. You're still part of that as an instructor, as coaching youth teams and things like that. And I think these conversations are interesting within the scope of high school baseball because there's people say this all the time, but I don't know if we explain it very well. Trust the process. Okay. But my question always comes back to I'm this type of person. I'm like, well, what's the process? Do we have a process? And if there is a process, how are we setting these people in motion? How are we setting these young athletes in motion? All the way up to 14U, because the dynamics have seriously changed here recently within college recruiting. But I think it's been like this for quite some time. We forget that these kids all up through this development process still have to play high school baseball before they go to college. I mean, I haven't seen any 15-year-olds go directly to college and play professional baseball. I haven't seen it. I don't know. Maybe you have, but I haven't.
Yeah, that's a pretty rare occurrence. I don't know that anyone that have done that. I mean, I have seen some kids not make a high school team because
Mm-hmm.
of the talent level and still going to play college.
Right. Right.
Right? But there's still a level of development that they can't skip.
So talk to me, as you deal with both sides of the equation here with youth and high school baseball, talk to me about what you think, when we say process, what does that mean?
First of all, what parents and everybody needs to understand is everybody's process is different. There's not one process that's going to work or be outlined for every individual player, right? It even starts with the love of the game. Not every kid loves the game the same way. So if they don't have the same passion or the level of passion is not the same, then the process is going to be different for that player, right? So also depends on body types, skill levels, right? So there's not one cookie cutter process that is streamlined for everybody. That's what it needs to be the start of. First, we need to be able to introduce the players to the game and see that they enjoy it. Right, as a instructor and coach, like I don't typically give lessons to anyone under the age of 9. If they're 8 moving into kid pitch, then I'll start working with them. Not because I think they're too good, but just want those kids to go out in the backyard, throw some balls and play some catch and learn how to hit and not have to have the pressure of all the things that comes with that, right? So
Mm-hmm.
I think the process is different. There's been some 8-year-olds that are really locked in and mentally that they can handle some of that instruction. So I think that's some of the things that I try to talk to people about that I work with is not everybody's path is the same, and that's okay.
I liked what you said there because as I started thinking about this, I kind of, and I want to get your thoughts on this. I kind of broke it up into three kind of segments, and especially like an 8-year-old. Basic information, basic structure in doing a drill. 8U to 10U. I think that's the only thing you really have. Can you foundationally give these kids something to build upon. And I think that's the only thing you're just trying to, if you're building a house, you still just got to pour the foundation. And I think within any process, as you said, and it, how slow does that process, how slow do you pour the concrete?
Yeah.
Before it's, at some kids, it might, as you said, it might set in at 9, but it might not be till 10 years old to where they actually get that feeling of things and move and do it, or they set their mind and they really want to play the game. So I think foundationally, I think you've got 3 years to try and just, kind of the movement patterns of throwing a baseball. I remember when I first started coaching my son's team, I called my brother-in-law. He'd been coaching for many years. He had an opportunity trying out for a pro team many years ago. He has pretty good background knowledge of baseball. So I called him. I talked to him. I said, "Look, what am I doing here? How am I setting this structure in motion? We're talking about practice. We're talking about this, that." And he gave me some very basic level ideas of what you set in motion. And I think one of the things that was interesting to me was just the basic throwing motion, just a basic break and throw drill that gets the kids feeling their body, keeping them slow and feeling the motion and just doing that over and over. We even did that in our warm-ups before games. I just didn't let the kids go out and just chuck a baseball around, which we see today. You see at most of the 8-year-olds, you're not playing catch, you're playing throw and chase.
Fetch.
It's true, right? And that's not on the kids. That's on us as adults. Is everybody, you going to make every throw? No, I'm just saying. But for the most part, that's on the adults in the room for not setting foundations. And I think that's the key here to setting wherever that talent is setting that foundation. Agreed?
Yeah, 100%. But on the flip side of that, generally speaking, the first thing that every parent does with their kid is go throw them pitches, right? Because hitting's fun, but it's also the hardest. And then we neglect the catch and the throw part, right? So the process should be we spend more time learning how to catch the ball and throw the ball than we do with the hitting piece of it, in my opinion. Because I see tons of kids that come through that have the ability to hit the ball, but then you take them to the field and it looks like they've never been able to taught how to catch, stop the ball, move their body, and those types of things. So if parents are listening, make sure you spend as much, if not more, time with the catch, right? Because if they're not comfortable catching the ball or get over the fear of catching the ball, that's a huge issue. And so every kid kind of goes through that, especially at bat or the ball hits them or whatever. But the process should definitely be fundamentally on playing catch and throwing the ball and stopping the ball.
One of the things I always wanted, I wanted to do this because forever, even when I was a kid, the ball hit you. That didn't hurt. Rub some dirt on it. The ball doesn't hurt. Just get down to first base, and kids are crying. You got And first at 8U, I took a baseball, and I had all the kids around, and I said, "Here, feel that," and pass it around to everybody. And I said, and it got back to me. And I said, "Okay." I said, "Is that baseball hard?" And they're like, it's 8-year-olds. Yeah. I said, "Will it hurt if it hits you?" And their faces are frozen because we're no, it doesn't hurt to get hit. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. Yeah. It hurts. And I said, and that's what I told the kids. I said, yes, it hurts. And I looked at them and I said, that's why we have a glove. Yeah. Because we're going to catch the baseball. We don't want it to hit us. And getting that thought process, because the body follows the mind. And if we will set those things in motion, not out of fear, but this is why we catch the baseball, and we're going to learn to catch it well so it doesn't hit us and it won't hurt. And it's not a matter of being afraid of something. This is the process of how and why. But if you don't catch it and you get hit in the beezer, it's going to hurt.
Yeah, it hurts. I've run several camps, either through the school or through my private instruction, and um, I start with a lot of tennis balls and with younger kids and teaching them how to track it and get underneath it. And there's a specific drill we do where I toss it in the air and they have to let it bounce off the top of their head. Then I'll slowly, gradually um, add a glove, and then I'll add a harder ball. And it's just things like that, instead of just going out there smoking ground balls at kids when they're not comfortable. But the process also has to be a collaborative effort with parents, all right, and also their teams and coaches, right? And one of the things about the process that at all ages, I don't want to jump too far ahead, but one of the things about process is when I tell people that they're looking for a team, is to develop what your priorities are for that team. And at the end of the day, you want to surround your kid with like-minded players and ability level players, right? We try to force kids to play at a major level, and they're not a major level player. They're a double A player, and their interest is double A. And there's nothing wrong with that. Um, there's nothing wrong with that at all. It's just a part of where they are in their development.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, we have to make it fun for these kids, right? Because if it's not fun, they're not going to want to do it. And it's not fun if I'm afraid of the ball, right? And I can't hit the ball, right? I was talking to a kid this morning at school. He used to play baseball. I said, "Hey, I said, we need some freshmen to come out. You want to play?" He goes, "Nah." I was like, one or two reasons. You either can't hit or you're afraid of the ball. Which one is it? He goes, "I can't hit, coach." Right? So that's really why kids ultimately quit, if they can't do one of those two things. But one of the things we need to teach as development people that's interested in development, that you can impact the game in more ways besides hitting. There's way more opportunities to impact the game than being at the plate. And that is what we preach a lot for younger kids. It's like, you can't be one dimensional. I don't need an 11-year-old DH,
Right.
right?
Right.
I don't need that. I don't need a 12-year-old DH. I
Right.
need somebody that I can put out in the field and give us some flexibility on defense. And you need to make yourself marketable for when you do get to high school, because the more that you can do, the more opportunities for you to be able to stay on the field.
I love that. I think the priorities, 8, 9, 10, I think that's exactly what you're looking at. What do you say? When you said that, I agree with you personally. But you hear these people say, well, my kid, he's maybe a double A player, but I want him to play on this team. I don't want him to be in the middle or the best player on the team. I want him to be down here because that'll push him to. Where do you see that thought process?
As a coach, I want them to be the best player. Right?
Yeah.
So that thought process, that's where I go back to putting them with like-minded players and ability level players and trying to match that up as much as possible. Of course, it's never going to be perfect, but
Mm-hmm.
the marriage is going to work a lot better if they're with kids that, say, you want a group of kids that want to play more baseball, right? You need to find a team with the level that's going to allow them to do that. Or there's kids that want to play less baseball, which is perfectly fine because they want to do other sports. They need to do that as well. But it has to be about the player and not about parents. And that's what we run into. Is I always say this, and I believe it to my core. I want you to be really good at 18. I don't really care if you're good at 8. Because if you're really good at 18, you're going to have options to continue to play. You can be really good at 8 and not be very good at 18, and then your baseball career is over.
That's a fair. I love that. When you get to the rolling through this process, and like I said, the second second, third, I guess, lack of a better way to put, in this thought process, 11U to 13U. I think it's the separator. As you said, I loved what you said there because I think that's where you're going to see kids that really want to play, that are, as opposed to kids that either it's just fun or yeah, I really enjoy playing with my buddies. I want to be better, but I like other sports. And that 11U to 13U, I think, is a really big separator in that thought process and in that development. And I think where the instructional piece really comes into play for the athlete. Agreed?
Yeah, I agree. But I would actually say I would probably pair 13 and 14 together and 11 and 12 by itself
Okay.
because the game changes so much at 13 with that extra 10 feet. You're getting closer to playing real baseball. And also puberty usually kicks in.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a different dynamic. You usually don't have too many kids at 12 in puberty, but you get a ton at 13, right? So I like to group it 13 and 14 together. But in 11 and 12 is where you start to um, really focus on more of the mental aspect of the game as well, I think, because it prepares you for 13. Because at 13, you may run into a kid that's 6 foot already and 150 pounds, and I got to figure out how am I going to be able to compete against this kid when I'm 5 foot and 95 pounds, right?
It's true.
So I think the fundamentals have to start to be there for sure at 11 and 12 if you want to start getting into competitive baseball.
And I think that's a great part of this because then if you don't have that foundation from 8 through 10, the movement, the footwork, the basic throwing motions and things like that, I believe that's where you start to see kids struggle at 11U and parents start going, well, we're better than this. We can play better than this. And I think the angst of stuff gets involved in this. And why isn't my kid playing better? Well, structurally, they don't have the foundation to, because their physicality, when you start moving to 11U, then 12U, the field all just starts getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And if you don't have the fundamentals in place, sometimes you can't rely on just strength unless
Yeah.
you have that. And I think
Yeah.
that's where the separator is with some of these kids that are just big, like the 6 foot kid. He may not be fundamentally sound, but he's just strong enough to make those plays at 11, 12 years old. Whereas now that he comes to 13, he's always just relied on his physicality, but where's the structure? And I think that's what puts a lot of these kids behind the eight ball.
Oh, I agree. I think it goes both ways. I mean, I've seen a ton of kids that have been physically developed early and lack fundamentals, and then everybody catches up to them, and their parents are freaking out because they don't know what happened. Well, part of that falls on the coaches as well, not coaching their better players the same way that they coach their weakest players, right? And one of the things that I like to say and pride myself on is I coach everybody the same. They need different skills and time, but my expectations for what I want them to accomplish doesn't change, right? How they get there may look a lot different, but I think you get these kids that just have been athletically way better than everybody else, and then their fundamentals are lacking, and then they get to 14 in high school, and these kids are passing them up, and their parents are freaking out. To me, it's the development is really the two times that I really have to um, have more conversations with parents is from machine pitch to kid pitch, right? And the
Yeah.
ball doesn't come the same speed, the same location every time, and everybody can hit the ball, right?
Right.
And now it's up, down, in, out, slower, faster, and parents freak out at 9U because their kid was one of the better hitters
Yeah.
on the team, and that because it was just rote practice. And then also from 12 to 13 is where I usually see those two where people are somewhat panicking about that. But so I just think overall, we have to really think holistically about each individual player.
Mm-hmm. I think if, and that's why I always put 11U to 13U myself, because I think you're still within that structural piece. When we go out and we see we'll see 13U teams. And like you said, and you have this team of kids that are all 5 foot nothing, 80, 90 pounds. And then you'll have this team that's got 3 or 4 kids that are starting that process at 13, just crushing the ball everywhere and they competition wise, whatnot. And can this team compete? They can only compete if they're foundationally sound, structurally sound, and set in motion to field a ground ball. They're not afraid. There's the other part of that. You get the kid that's, 5'8", 5'9" at 13 that weighs 125 pounds. Ball comes and he's using that icon or the hype fire or whatnot and smoking baseballs. How many kids at 13U really have the reactionary prowess, for lack of a better way to get it? Are their reaction skills good enough to pop a ball off of that? It's coming, 85, 90 miles an hour off that bat because this kid's just big and strong. And can you react well enough, quick enough? Are they fundamentally in place to do that? And I think these are things that we don't take into consideration at these ages in that fashion. Would you agree?
That's 100%, especially from the parental side.
Yeah.
I mean, I would hope that most coaches do, and I think they do, and then that they get labeled as daddy ball or not giving kids chances. Well, if your kid is afraid of the baseball and these kids are hitting it hard, it's a safety issue. It may not have anything to do with a preference of this kid over that kid. It's just your kid doesn't look like he wants to be there. Like he's afraid of the ball being hit to him, right? So it goes into those things, and then it comes out. And of course, there is daddy ball and some of those different things, but at the end of the day, it comes back to safety and ability, right? So we had to make sure that we're putting these kids. I always used to tell the youth kids that I coach is I'm going to allow you to work out at different positions during practice, and you're going to get reps. But I don't know that you're going to play there in the game, because if you can't show me you can do it at practice, why would I do that in the game? Why would I put you in a position where you're not comfortable playing yet? But we're going to continue to work on it at practice. And I think that's the approach that youth coaches should take. I think I just had this conversation with somebody else about multiple positions. Well, not everybody mentally can play multiple positions. Not everybody physically can play multiple positions. If a kid's struggling to pay attention and don't know where to go with the ball, why would I move him all over the place where the game can't slow down for him, and then it becomes frustrating?
Right.
Right. Right. So there's a lot of factors that go into all of these different things. But from a parental perspective, sometimes all they see is the game result and not everything else that leads into that. Right. But us coaches that have to do a really good job of trying to prepare and being better at practice. And that's, to me, that is huge for me, is trying to structure practices to make it the most meaningful and giving kids things that they can work on at home, right? So anytime I'm working with youth on either fielding or batting, I always give them drills that they can do by themselves. They don't have an excuse of I didn't have anybody to do it with, right? No, seriously, I
Yeah.
always do that. If you come to any of my camps or working with youth, there's a lot of drills that I show them that they can do by themselves, right? And
You got to be able to do that because you don't always have somebody to throw you a ground ball or to do this or whatnot. And there are drills you can do.
tons of them. Tons of them. I mean, we do tons of drills that don't require anybody else at our high school practice.
It's always interesting to me. You hear about um, a Brendan Donovan, an Arenado, or somebody like that, a Yachty. They're working all the time. They're in front of the mirror. They're in the cage, just repping their swing, getting
Mhm.
the feel for it. And to me, as we're doing this, because I want to ask you this question, what you think about it, because I have thoughts on this, but 8 to 10U, you're building that foundation. And I think in that 11 to 13U, you're kind of seeing if kids can feel their body, for lack of a better way to put it. Because there are some kids that just can't, you say, how can you correct that? Can you correct that? Can you feel what you're doing wrong? And I think there's different levels to that. And I think that's where you kind of start seeing the separation in that 11 to 13U. You see kids that are starting to recognize, can I correct this? How do I correct it? How do I correct my feet? They can kind of feel their body moving. Has that been your experience?
Oh, 100%. I can think of 2 kids right now that are 12U baseball. I think I've been working with both of them. They're on the same team, been working with both of them for about, 2 years right now,
Mm-hmm.
and one of them, his mental capacity has grown and his game shot to the next level. Whereas the other kid's mental capacity has kind of stayed the same. And he's made progress, but not nearly as much as the other one. So you're 100% right. When they start to have the mental processes that can match the physical, is really when you start to see those kids start to take off. And, when I'm working with somebody, I tell them, I ask them, what do they hit with? And kids look at me like it's a trick question, right? And what do you feel with? And they look at me like it's a trick question. Well, the truth of it is your eyes, right? If you don't see the ball and your eyes don't track the ball, you're not going to be a good fielder. You're not going to be a good hitter. I don't
Right.
care if you got a $500 bat or a Walmart special bat, right? Our eyes have to be the key to that. And so, um, when they have to understand those processes and manage the movements. But the kids that really can get some body awareness, and that comes at different ages, Brian. It really does.
Yeah.
It can come early for some kids at 8 or 9, and it can come really late for kids that are 14 or 15.
Yeah.
I got a 14-year-old kid right now that's made a lot of strides that I work with personally, and I give him a bunch of movement activities at home to work on, learning how to control his body, some med ball rotational stuff, some PVC pipe rotational stuff and movement stuff. I don't even tell him to hit the ball at home. No,
Right.
seriously,
I
because
understand.
until he can learn how to move better, he's never
Mhm.
going to get the production that he wants to get. Right. So movement is a huge part of it. And not to get to the hitting philosophy too much, but that's one of the things that's at the very top of my list when I instruct somebody on in hitting.
I love that because it's something that as we've been talking with a lot of Brett Graves has been doing a little plug there for Keep Climbing, the podcast. He talks about that with pitchers, the movement, how your body moves, being more athletic, being an athletic thrower, and the same. So the concepts are all the same, and I think athleticism is that. You see guys that don't have the athleticism of another, but they understand their limitations and work to overcome that within the movement and working their body to become the best it can be in those situations.
Yeah, 100%. You know, I had a couple new clients the other day, and I said, "Listen, my goal is for you to be able to maximize your movement and produce what your body can produce at this time until you physically develop. That's what I'm trying to get out of you right now, right?
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
probably not going to hit the ball 300 feet yet, but if we can get you to hit the ball harder and on the line, you're probably going to have more production. So I am trying to maximize their movements until their body catches up or the strength naturally catches up.
Yeah.
And that's really, and so if they have that foundation, once they get the strength, man, sky's the limit. They really start to take off.
The last thing that I look for in these things, and especially with 14U players, because you should be, if you've been through this, you've trusted, you've had people, and things are moving in that process the way that you're going. even if you haven't necessarily physically matured to the extent yet, which happens, 14U, some of these kids go in. Okay. The one thing that I think I look for is you have to be at that point in a place where the mental focus in baseball is such a difficult thing. Can a player focus? What do you mean by focus? And what is that? What are the process in that and learning how to do that? If you've done all these things physically, you've gone through the instruction, all the foundation is there. This is where confidence comes in. The belief in what you are and who you are as a player comes into, I think, being, because you have to, for let's say you're playing a 7-inning game at 14U, you play the whole one. Your pitchers throw 30 pitches, right?
Yeah.
Somewhere in that neighborhood. You have to be able to be mentally focused with the confidence that the ball is, as far as on defense, the ball is going to be hit to you on every one of those pitches. That is the elite thought process. And then on the same token, you have to have 3 at-bats where your focus, you have to see every pitch and understand what that process is. So that's the last piece of that puzzle. You can tune your body and all that, but if the mind can't focus in that capacity with baseball, I think it becomes a very difficult sport to play at a high level.
100%. I'll take the 14-year-old underdeveloped kid that has an awareness of his body and skill set and knows how to play baseball over a 14-year-old kid that's physically developed that has no idea of how to play baseball. I'm taking that other one all day because the other kid's going to be able to make winning plays, right? And at the end of the day, that's what we're trying to do, is be able to make winning plays or plays that help your team win. And the mental part at that age is so underdeveloped, to be honest. And that is really what I talk to youth coaches and 14-year-olds that I work with. And here's what I just tell them. I say, from 8 to 14, right, you have to be able to make an adjustment hitting mentally at bat to at bat. But when you get to high school, you probably need to start making that pitch to pitch, because if I've got 15 kids on my roster and you can't make an adjustment, you're probably going to start losing opportunities. And so my expectation, all that I work with, is to be able to make an adjustment at bat to at bat. I tell them I don't want 3 of the same negative results from 8 to 14 in a game. So if you pop up once, you strike out once, and you hit a ground ball once, that's not the same negative result. I can live with that. But if you got 3 pop-ups to the infield, and that tells me you didn't process something and you didn't make an adjustment anywhere, and that's where we got to go back to the table and figure out what's going on. But when you get to 15, I am looking for kids who can take what I am giving instructionally and try to make a change. Those are the kids that are going to get more opportunities. It's not necessarily results driven. It's, I see you have changed or working on changing what I've asked you to be able to do. That develops trust for me, because you may hit a ton of ground balls and we work on it and I tell you need to do this, and now you start popping up a lot more. I know you've processed it and made a change somewhere. It may not be what we want result wise, but I can see that there's a difference, right? And so I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt to give you more opportunities. Whereas I say you need to do this and they keep doing the same thing over and over. Why would I continue to invest the amount of opportunities in that person when I got somebody else who's over here willing to change?
I love that. I hope folks are listening, because And we were talking before we started the show here. Coach Josenberger is the head coach at Staley High School too, folks. Last year, his team they finished second in the state in Class 6. He's got great talent, understanding. We were talking about this. And this is the point to these things and what you're saying here, Coach. And I love this. It goes right into it. For so long, we have in youth baseball talked about college, getting to college. And 8U to 14U shouldn't be about college baseball. It should be about what you just said. I wonder how many kids, how many parents actually know that are coming into, that live in the Staley school district and whatnot, know who you are and know that you're the high school baseball coach if their kid wants to play baseball in high school and move that direction. I would say, from my experience, not a lot. They don't come to a baseball game. They don't come to a high school baseball game to see what level of baseball it is. They're not putting themselves in that thought process. We're talking about going to Mizzou and playing, D1 baseball instead of the investment from 8 to 14 as how you just finished. Do you know the expectations of your high school baseball coach? And I would say most people don't.
Yeah, I think that's definitely a disconnect. That's why we try to run camps a lot to get kids in our culture. We actually did a freshman camp, and it was all about getting those freshmen to understand the culture of what we're wanting to do. And it wasn't just freshmen. We invited freshmen. It was 9 through 12 because I wanted those kids to be surrounded by the kids that are already in the program and get an understanding of what we do. Because I do think sometimes there's a disconnect between, oh, my kid does this, he's going to automatically make the high school team. And I tell people this all the time. Your goal should not only be to make the high school team. Your goal should be able to figure out how to be on varsity and impact and become a starter as soon as possible. You shouldn't be working just to make a high school team. If you're serious about playing baseball, you should be figuring out, how can I get to varsity and be a starter as soon as possible? What do I need to do? Because that is what's going to advance you to be able to get to college, right? If I only have a make the team mindset as a freshman, then I'm probably not a college prospect.
That's a fair assessment.
Yeah.
That's a fair assessment. I think it is, because, and you were telling me, I want you to recount, you were talking you had a meeting today with your kids and whatnot. We were talking about this before. And I think it goes right into this mindset because at 14U, if you can't mentally go into high school and be prepared that way for what it's going to be, then the process that you followed wasn't working. It wasn't the right process. It didn't help you because you've not been able to. You might make the freshman team. And look, we all know this. Class 6, Class 5, Class 4, Class 3, Class 2, Class 1, they're all different dynamics. But Class 6 in the state of Missouri, it's definitely a different dynamic with these larger schools and the quality of baseball, and especially in some of the metro areas where training is available and kids are playing from an early age. But, coming up and looking at these things, are we really truly getting these kids prepared for high school baseball? Or have we been selling short trying to think about college too much?
Yeah, I think it has to be appropriate and match all the things that we mentioned before, right? And you're right about the Class 6. We had a 6 a.m. workout this morning. We do that twice a week for about 8 weeks, and at the end, we always do a wrap up and talk about some things. And one of the point is last year at my banquet, there's probably 100 some people there, maybe more. I said to our freshmen and sophomores, um, if you guys want to be able to compete at the varsity level, we've got to get more physical. I'm not really happy with where we are development with our bodies. And so a lot of you guys in this room are not going to get the result next spring that you want if you come back looking like you are today. And to their credit, this morning I gave a shout out to some sophomores that have really taken that on, and they look different. They move different. They got different, confidence to them. And then on the flip side of that, we have a really large junior class this year, and we're going to have to make some significant cuts in that number. And if they didn't do what those sophomores did and work on their body, some of them didn't. A lot of them did. We've got a great group of kids, and they've been really committed. So don't get me wrong with that. But we're going to have to make some tough choices come the spring because that class is so large, and all things being equal, I'm probably going with the younger guy, right? We have a lot more time to develop. And that's the conversation we had this morning with our players. And it may come down to grades, may come down to your attitude in class, may come down to how you respond with teammates. It may not just be all about baseball, and it's probably not. It's going to come down to some of those other things that parents may not necessarily think about. All they see is the baseball product. They don't see their interaction between their teammates and how teammates feel about them and how they respond during a hard workout and all those different things. At the end of the day, at 14, you also have to start working on the physicality part. Huge, right? Because I just tell kids, when you get to high school, it's not 15U or 16U. It's 15 through 18. You're competing against 18-year-olds, right? And so you have to have that mindset of you gotta put yourself in the best position to succeed physically, not just the rest of it. And if you want to play at the next level in college, you have to embrace the workout part of it. Right. And so that's one of the reasons why we do 6 a.m. workouts. If you scan across the country, most baseball teams do early workouts because they don't have priority for the weight room. Goes to
Right.
football, basketball, other programs. It's just reality. Right.
Yeah.
So I've been having communication with some of our former players about these 6 a.m. workouts, and they're like, Coach, man, we didn't love those, but I'm glad we did them because it got us kind of mentally prepared to get up, work out, go through your regular day, and then come back and do it in the afternoons or whatever it may be. So that's part of the reason that we do it, because you're going to have to do something hard when you get to college. And us as coaches, especially in the high school, we have to make it a little bit uncomfortable so that when those guys do get to the next level, they're not in complete shock. Right.
Yeah. I think you also it does show you a level of commitment. Who's committed to
100%.
this? You know,
100%.
do I have a group of guys here that are going to put themselves in this situation, even if maybe they don't like it, but they're going to set their minds to doing what they know is going to help them succeed and overcome the negative part of it to find the positives and things and how we move forward. And I think those are all good things. And I think we don't test ourselves like that sometimes as we should.
No, we definitely don't. Once they get to high school, we got to start trying to get them ready for the next level. And that's some of the stuff that we really try to do as a program, physically, mentally, as people, to try to get them ready to handle some of that. And I don't want your first time to struggle being when you get to college.
Right.
I want to produce an atmosphere where you've got to go through something hard and through our program, and you had to overcome some adversity. Now, when you get to college, you've experienced it, and it's not a complete shock. You see a lot of kids that's never struggled before, and then they get to the next level and they don't know how to respond. So we have to cultivate atmospheres where we can put them through some hard things. And
Go ahead, Coach. I'm sorry.
yeah, and so I think that's super important also. And even in my lessons, it's not always a feel good lesson. A lot of times in our in our cages, we'll do a challenge day, right? I'm gonna try to get you out here, right?
Yeah.
Um, that's what I'm gonna do today. It's gonna suck, but this is what the real game is, right? It's not gonna be somebody flipping the ball up there to you 25 miles an hour all the time. Now, if we're working on a swing change or something fundamentally, it's not gonna be a challenge. But once you have that skill that we've been working on, I gotta challenge you also in the instruction. So because that's the reality of what the game's gonna look like. And I think practice shouldn't be easy. And I tell all my players, if you had a perfect practice, I didn't do my job.
Right. Right. It's got to be work. It's got to,
It had
and see, that's where I love that thought process because, if 8 through 10U, 11 through 14, however you break these things down within that process, it's got to be the mindset in a similar fashion. If you're in high school, you're making it uncomfortable. You don't want them to struggle. It's the same thing, but taking that level and saying, how am I prepared to make my varsity team as a freshman? If I don't do it, okay, coach, what do I have to do? What's the next thing? And a lot of times kids aren't coming in prepared for that. They don't make the varsity team. They're like, man, coach just doesn't like me. And that becomes the narrative rather than what do I have to do to get better so that I can be part and make a difference on the varsity squad. And that's that mental capacity we have to have.
Yeah, I think it's just really having some honest conversations with your players and expectations and outlining what the expectations for your program and all those different things are. And I think that's why we do the youth camps too. They get to see the pace of how we practice and expect things to do, and it opens some eyes for the players, and it
Mhm.
opens some eyes for parents to say, "Oh man, I need to either this process I have in place is working, or I need to figure one out pretty quickly." Right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, and to me, if okay, Staley High School, um, Nixa High School, Willard, Liberty, Liberty North, Rockbridge, Francis Howell, you know, these are schools that we've seen over even down Jackson. Coach Roach does a great job with that program. Kicker next week, we're going to have Coach Roach on. Um, what are we doing? What are we doing as parents? And I didn't know this. I didn't do this. I wish I would have, but I didn't. And I look back and I go, wow, that was not good. You know, I sent my son to the camp, but I didn't know Coach Hill. I didn't know him, didn't know expectations. I don't think Justin really did. So you come into these things and do you really know the coach? Do you know what the expectations? Do you know what the program's about? Are you setting yourself? Do we know enough in that 8U to 13U to really know, okay, when I hit the 14, I can start understanding, are we on a team that's going to be favorable to how our coach plays high school baseball? Is my game fit that? Do I know what those things are? I don't think we do. And that doesn't mean, I know that sounds kind of strange, but it's true. There's coaches coach differently. They have different philosophies about how, offensively. You said that earlier. You talk about hitting philosophy. I'm not going to get too deep in that, but you have different offensive philosophies. You have different defensive pitching philosophies. Do you have a pitching staff, or are you relying, on 3 or 4 guys? What do those things look like? And I just don't think we're doing enough of that in those younger ages in that respect to focus on getting to the high school level before we start thinking about and allowing the coaches there to help you then refine your skills and get to that collegiate level. And to
Yeah.
me, I think that's what's important, coach.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. And like I said before, it's kind of holistically because different kids need different things at different
Mhm.
times. And then they may not have needed it at 10, but now they need it at 14, right? It happens that way. But you also have to, whatever you're doing, there has to be some type of evaluation that's honest evaluation and feedback to say, hey, this works now. but it won't work there. When I work with kids on base running that are fast, I'm like, hey, you can steal this base now, but if you don't figure out how to read pitchers and your cues and all of those things, you're going to start getting thrown out. Like, why am I saying something to you because you made it? Because it's not going to work in 2 years, right? So why would I let you continue to do the things that I know is not going to be successful for you in the future just because it works now?
Mm-hmm. Right.
That process that's not how I believe that it should be, right? Just because you get away with it now don't mean it's the right thing to do, right? We still have to continue to work on the right process and the fundamentals so that when you do need that, you already have it in place. And then you don't have sticker shock, right?
How come this kid's throwing me out, man? I'm faster than that, coach.
Yeah, you haven't got a jump in your life. You just rely on your speed. You haven't read the cue of the pitcher. You haven't looked at his setup, his hands. You haven't done anything.
And then you start getting picked off too,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. Or you get gun shy and afraid to run, and you're the fastest kid on the team, and you're
Yep.
wondering why Bobby can steal these bases, and he's way slower than you, and you're way faster, right? But you can't play fast because you don't have the technique, right? So
And when pitchers are getting faster to the plate and the ball getting faster to the plate, and then all of a sudden you have a catcher that can throw a baseball, wow, the change becomes inevitable. And
yeah,
do you become inevitable? And I love those thought processes. That's why I like this conversation, because I always think that it's relevant. It's always relevant because we're always going through the process of new parents, new players, kids that are coming in, kids that are going out. How do you reset? How do you keep everything, the information, getting people enough information to really understand? Will there people that will listen to you? Maybe not. People that will listen to you and take the information and do it, and finding programs that will be honest with you in these assessments is also a huge aspect of it.
oh, 100%. I've got a couple of high level kids on our team that rank pretty high in the state, and I give them a hard time all the time about some stuff that they need to do or tease them like, all right, you're in the top 10 for that, really? That's how we gonna do this today, right? And it's just it's all in good fun or laughing, and they get it. But a lot of people won't push those kids, and they're the ones that want it the most,
Yes.
right? And so that's our job too. And I tell all of our players that we're only as good as the worst kid in our program.
Yeah. Yep. And
Right.
that kid that is in the top 10, it's because he has the talent and the ability. So, but it doesn't mean anything if it's not matured correctly and gone through the process to be consistent, 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 day in, day out. Can you meet the physical and mental requirements of your ability? You're going to miss sometimes. It's just the nature of the game. But that you have the mental capacity to compete at that level, that's the key.
Right. And parents understanding it's not always going to be success. Progress is not always a home run or a hit or any of that, right? Failure and growing from it and being able to make some changes is is part of the process. Success, allowing your kid to actually be coached, to tell them they're not the best player or you're not as good at this as you think you are, or whatever it may be, right? And it has to be, of course, we always want to give positives and good feedback, but if you're on my team, Brian, you're not going to get better from me telling you how great you are every day.
Right.
You're
Right.
not.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, there has to be some feedback like, all right, you did that well. Let's try to focus on this, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, next couple weeks, let's really focus on this or try to do this. And I had those conversations with, like I said, a couple players in our in our program that are really high level players. And I'm like, hey, you guys hit too many ground balls. You guys need to work on that. We need to be able to get more extra base hit pop out of you guys. And they both went and embraced it, and they tore it up this summer with extra base hits. Right? It could have went any other way. Oh, I'm hitting the ball. I'm hitting 330 right now. Right? But it's all ground balls and singles. Right? And that's not what we need out of you. That's not what you are able to produce. So having those different types of conversations with players is, yeah, man, you do a great job of not striking out and putting the ball in play. But now we've got to be able to get more extra base hits out of you. We can't hit so many ground balls.
Can we get gap to gap? Can we get
100%.
that line drive, and what does that do to your swing, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And if you want to get to where you want to be and we want to get to where we want to be, it's going to have to be a combination of you embracing that.
Yeah. And that's where I love that because, and conversations, kids being able to talk to their parents about these things, Coach and I had this discussion, and then if a parent has a question as a coach, hey, you know what, we're working on this with son. These are the things we're asking of him. Yeah, he's successful, but this is what, as a team, and I don't think parents understand that as much sometimes as a team, this is what we need as a team. And this is what I need from your guy as a member of this team. He's hitting here because we need this production out of him. And I didn't really understand a lot of that in baseball for quite some time. And you see, why are you hitting in the 4, 5, 6 spot? Why are you hitting in the 9 hole? Is it an extra leadoff hitter? You got speed, you can bunt, we can do this. How do you produce? How are you being part of the team offensively? And what does that say moving forward for how you succeed as a team and what the ultimate goal is?
Yeah. I mean, yesterday in my cage, I had a kid and I was working with him. I gave him a scenario. Hey, runner on third base, infield's in, less with one out. You got to score this runner.
Yeah.
And he was struggling and struggling and struggling. So I stopped the lesson and I said to him, hey, if you can't get this runner in, you're going to be either at the bottom of the lineup or out of the lineup. And so you need to figure out how to get this runner in. And I gave him an analogy about which player would you rather have? The guy that's got 45 RBIs and hitting 260, or the guy that's hitting 330 with 10 RBIs that always gets a hit when nobody's on base, right? And he goes, the guy with the RBIs. I go, yeah, you don't always have to get a hit to be productive. And so that's what parents have to understand too. And when I'm coaching a kid, I go, what's your job as a hitter? And a lot of people say get on base. There's times where I need to be on base, but overall, my goal is to make hard contact. And if I've made hard contact, I'm successful because you're not always going to get a hit that way. But hard contact translates at every level of baseball.
Yes, it
Right?
does.
So just understanding and having those different types of conversations. Yeah, you're hitting a lot of singles with nobody on base, with 2 outs, right? But I need you to be able to get this runner from third base with 1 out, right?
Right.
Yeah. So those different types of things and conversations and the mental approach and expectations that it takes for that. And once I had that conversation with that kid right there in the middle of the cage, his production went right up because now he knows what's on the line, right? Before he's just swinging and it just sounds fun. But I'm like, hey, right now, if you're playing for me in high school, because he's an 8th grader, right? If you're playing for me and you can't get that runner in, we're either going to have to look at a different option. I'm going to either have to bunt you, pinch hit for you, or not play you.
Ooh. And if you're not helping me defensively, then it could be the last option.
Yeah. If you're not helping me defensively, it's going to be the last option. 100%.
Right.
100%. I tell people I coach hitting, for a living. I coach fielding as well. But I'm going to hang my hat on being able to pitch and catch and get people out way more than I am hitting. Because the reality of it is big innings don't happen because there's 4 or 5 hits in a row. Big innings happen because somebody makes a mistake or we're walking people. And then we get a big hit. Right. So
Oh, I say this, how hard is it to string 4 and 5 hits together? It's just hard.
Really hard. It's really hard. I'd love to see the percentages of how often it happened in the big leagues.
That's a good question. We're going to have to
Yeah.
look that up, Coach.
Yeah, you find that out, Brian. I don't
I
think
will. I'm gonna have to. I gotta find somewhere where that's
when
that
you
stat.
find
It's somewhere.
I can just spill it out to my team. Look like I know something that I didn't have any part in.
Oh man. Oh, that's great stuff, folks. Head coach at Staley, Dionandre Josenberger. Coach, you do lessons and stuff. Where can people find you for that stuff? Where are you at?
So I have my own website. My baseball is Hard Results Baseball. You can just Google hardresultsbaseball.com. My website will pop up. Just some stuff on there, and you got an online link to schedule. If you go to Staley, don't schedule because we know we can't do all that stuff, right? So I coach mostly Liberty North and Platte County kids and other kids, right? Kind of crazy, but I'm making everybody else in the city better to try to beat me. But I love what I do. I'm blessed to be able to. I'm blessed to be able to help kids on their journeys, baseball and softball wise, to try to maximize their ability. And at the end of the day, that's really what it's about.
There you go. I love it, folks. It's my pleasure. I enjoyed this conversation a lot, Coach. I appreciate this one.
Yeah, so I appreciate you having me on to talk about this. It's a really important topic that we kind of skate over sometimes, and it gets uncomfortable, and so people don't want to have them. But on the other side of being uncomfortable is growth, right, Brian?
That's correct. Yeah, because you're like, I think it's hard to look in the mirror sometimes, right? You're like,
Oh yeah,
that's me.
yeah.
I got to fix that. Oh, dang. So, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right, folks. Thanks. We appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed it. Comment below. I know I probably didn't say that enough. I never do. I hope you do, but if you don't, fine. But if you like what we're doing, please subscribe. Hit the like button there. That helps with the algorithm. I appreciate these fantastic contributors coming on, like Coach Josenberger, that brings these conversations into Youth Baseball Midwest. That's our goal, to be the most comprehensive youth baseball talk in the Midwest. And with gentlemen like this, it sure does help. So we appreciate it very much. Everybody, have a great day in the Lord. All you pitchers, as Kevin said, I think last week, get in the weight room. That's what he said, right?
Yeah, I'm with that, Kevin.
And so I would say that's the same advice for the hitters right now, correct, Coach?
100%. It's advice for any athlete playing any sport.
Get in the weight room. So we'll save the rest of it for in season. Till next time, we'll see you all at the ballpark.